is an appellation which was given by the Renaissance humanists after the 12th century to denote a time period from about the 12th century to the 15th century, the pre-15th century, in which they were operating. Initially, this was a rather derogatory term to differentiate the art and architectural forms from what was in their time. But now that appellation is no longer derogatory, and this has become a neutral term to indicate the period and the architecture and the art that took place between the 12th all the way to the 14th and even the 15th centuries. The major flowering and the major architectural novelties that took place emanated from France. Of course, there was no France at that time, as we know it today. We use the term France as a modern designation of our times. France in medieval Europe was divided into different territories, like Normandy, like Brittany, and other areas. But when we talk about the French Gothic, it is understood that this totality is intended. In Germany as well, we have quite a manifestation of the Doric, of the Gothic achievement, and also in England there is a considerable architectural production. The age itself was a very colorful one. On the one hand, the monastic orders became grander and richer and more established, wielding a power. But on the other hand, a secular order based on feudal lords and aristocrats also started to take place. And in tandem with these, we have the birth of universities as well as a seat of knowledge which began to rise in tandem with the church, which had been the repository for knowledge and the painting of manuscripts. But also, we have to think of the medieval social tapestry in terms of these feudal lords who were instrumental in building the cities. If the monastic orders built the churches and the cathedrals and contributed to the architectural revolution in these times, it is due to the medieval lords, aristocrats, who were instrumental in building the cities and the castles in which they lived. In Germany, there are more than 10,000 castles which survive today, small and large ones. So you can see that these feudal lords had their residences spread all over Europe. In addition to this, there was also a mercantile class, with the roads being safer, with the routes being established. This mercantile class built the cities in the form of burgs, with town halls, with commercial centers. And we should not forget the 250 years in which 6 crusades took place. And with the crusades, which brought together the Western and Eastern worlds as we know it today, was a tremendous movement of people across Europe to get support for the crusades, both in terms of money as well as in terms of manpower. The different areas in a collaborative way, and these huge numbers of people traversed Europe all the way to the so-called Holy Land in the service of these crusades. In fact, in the Near East, we have some architecture which is built by the Frankish rulers, which try to carry some of the influences of Gothic Europe to the Near East as well. In places like Cyprus, for example, there are cathedrals, there are also castles. So this was a flourishing period with many different things happening in different arenas. But most notable of all is the gradual sequence of the evolution of architectural principles, the seeds of which had been laid already in the Romanesque period. In the Gothic period, there's little that is new in terms of architectural vocabulary. But what is new is the mastery and the refinement of what these different principles already began in the Romanesque period took shape. For one thing, in the Romanesque period, the church was a focus in a rather small settlement, maybe a village or a very, very small town. But with the more sophisticated settlements that began to take hold in Gothic Europe after the 12th century, we find that the monasteries or the churches themselves become the focal edifices in town. As such, they exude a very powerful image, drawing the attention as the most significant monument in town. So you would have a Gothic cathedral in the 12th century, like this one, and all the houses around it would be clustered around the cathedral itself. So there was no question about what was the significant focus in terms of architectural concentration. You had the residences, and the monumental residences were in the castles, the individual residences, and in the towns themselves, you had the small-scale buildings all clustered around the cathedral. And the experiments of the Romanesque cathedral, which were trying to elaborate the simple early Christian basilica with a new understanding, take an even greater impetus in the Gothic period. In France, here for example, you see that the nave is getting very, very high. The towers which rise above have become attenuated, and the rising height of the towers is also visually continued all the way from the base with these vertical accents. So there is this effort of trying to reach heavenward in the greater refinement, in greater sophistication. So if we can say that the Romanesque architecture was one of mass, the Gothic architecture was trying to get rid of the mass. The walls of the churches became, in a gradual sequence, almost diaphanous, transparent membranes. The wall was opened up, and the thrusts that emanated from the nave were channeled outside the building. In the Romanesque period, It was the walls of the nave that absorbed the major thrusts, so the walls had to be rather thick, or piers had to be put against the walls. And as a result, the Romanesque architects did not care about utilizing the potential of the wall as also a decorative matter. In the Gothic architecture, however, the wall is almost eliminated. The supports are carried outside to the building, leaving the inside to expand into a place full of light in a rather sophisticated manner. And in this respect, we find that the decoration which was applied in Romanesque architecture becomes part of the structural system in Gothic architecture. Structure and decoration are one and the same thing. If you took one block or one element of the decoration out of the system, then you would jeopardize, you would put into danger the tight system of balances that have been achieved. So nothing was tacked on. It was all part of the system. So when you had little, towers on the, outside, or when you had buttresses on the outside, which were decorated, they served a structural purpose, as we shall see. So the system, as we said, was based on the definition of the nave. In the Romanesque period, you had the nave arcade, you had the porphyrium, a middle element, and then you had the clerestory. In the arrangement of the nave in the Romanesque architecture, very usually, very often, the base underneath each one of the ribbed walls, the crossing of the two walls, were square, because they were a development from the Roman system of the groined vault, which we saw in the baths, and you had semicircular or slightly pointed arches. But with the Gothic architecture, they learned how to cross-sect, to dissect the meeting of the two vaults to form the ribbed vault, and you could have a rectangular bay due to the pointed arch. When you have a semicircular arch, each one of the bays at the cross-section of the vault has to be the same. So you can't be flexible with the bay. But if you have a pointed arch and you vary the square into a rectangle, depending on how thin or how wide the rectangle is, you can play with the pointed arch, and it doesn't, jeopardize the structural principle of the groined vault. So, in the Gothic architecture, one of the significant developments is the use and opening of the full potential of the pointed arch. So, the pointed arch allowed for the definition of the different bays. It allowed for the heightening of the covering of the roof, the clerestory, or wherever the vault sprang from. And it also succeeded in having the thrusts come not only into the piers, but also to be carried outside. Earlier, it was the wall which took the force. But in the Gothic system, the piers took the thrusts, and the thrusts were carried outside in the form of a flying buttress. The buttress is called the flying buttress, excuse me, because it is outside the building, and the flying buttress will take the thrust and then give it to an element, a pier, which is outside the wall. And the pier itself also had to counter the upward thrust, so there are pinnacles which are used almost like weights to press down the piers. So in every sense, the flying buttresses, the piers, and then the pinnacles are utilized to lighten the thickness of the wall, making it possible to open up the wall. I mean, if this doesn't have to be solid, and if that doesn't have to be solid, then you can perforate the walls as well to allow huge windows. And then there are very intricate rib arrangements, which, as I said, open up the windows, creating a new art, because once you have such a wide space, you have a new venue for a new kind of covering, which is the stained glass. And this is something which did not exist in the Romanesque period. And whatever the golden mosaic was for the Byzantine artists, the stained glass was the same for the Gothic artists. So in this regard, depending on how high you could get your pointed arch with the bay, which is no longer square, you could open up the windows between the different bays to allow light to come in. So this is a stone architecture through and through. There is no wood being utilized in the coverings of the roofs, which had been the concern in the early Romanesque architecture. There were so many fires, so gradually the massive roofs, the massive walls that we saw in churches like Durham Cathedral in England are giving way to these more light flooded interiors. The best eclectic example where all of these were seen for the first time is in the Abbey of Saint-Denis. In Saint-Denis, there was an abbot. An abbot is an official, a religious official. And Abbot Suger was his name, was responsible for Saint-Denis. And he came up with this new kind of plan, this new interpretation of the progressive elements in medieval architecture. When you look at this plan, the first thing that strikes you is the unity in the interior design, the unity in the plan. The transept is almost not existent. There are no arms which jut out. The basilical the arrangement, the basilical seed of the plan, the beginning principle is maintained, but it is made more spacious. And this spaciousness is not simply an aesthetic, thing. It is not a propagandistic device. It was a practical necessity. The huge crowds of, pilgrims that came to the churches needed to be accommodated within the church. They needed to walk around the church. They needed to be able to see some of the holy relics that were being displayed. And they needed to see the ceremonies, the religious ceremonies that were being conducted inside. So what we had seen in the pilgrimage churches like Santiago de Compostela, where you had ambulatories going all around, here too, the basic, the plan of the church has additions on the sides, as you see here. The apse, or the chevet, with the radiating chapels, extends from the nave, but two bays are added to the sides, making this part even more spacious and airy with light. The light allowed the pilgrims to move around and get, vistas of what was going on inside, and they could, circulate, they could perambulate within the church. The arrangement of the chevet, or the radiating chapel here, is also utilizing the pointed arches in a rather eclectic way. If you look at the ribbed walls here, you see that the ambulatory with the radiating chapels here has become rather sophisticated with the different vistas. The differential heights of the bays have created almost polygonal spaces, so while the pilgrims are able to circulate, they also experience the rich structural, potential, which is reflected to a new creation of space, a different space which is rich and sophisticated in terms of the plan. A closer look at the radiating chapels show how sophisticated this is. And the pilgrims would rotate, and then you would have the broken light coming in from the stained windows, giving a rather spiritual atmosphere, which did not impede the seeing of what was going on for large numbers of people. So this continued both in the inside and the outside. As you see, the churches are getting ever so higher and higher. I mean, here you see the congregation, and for the scale, you see that the elevation of the nave and the perforation of the nave, allowing the light to come in, a kind of polychromatic light through the stained windows is creating a very rich spiritual experience. This you have to think with the music as well. It's one of the instances where the architecture, art, and music, all the senses of the human body are brought to experience the atmosphere of the church. The music, human voice, and other, which reverberates within the chapel, is carried out with the sound and combined with the polychromatic, mysterious light that is coming in. And all of this is in a grand space which belittles the humans and which reinforces the power of the church. So it is an art altogether, when all the arts coming together, appealing to the sight and appealing to the sense of hearing, the ears as well. And of course, the outside of a church which is so grand is also receiving its own due, getting more elaborate in time. outside, the perforations, which are gradually rising, not only in the entrance, the tympanum, and the side entrances, but also in the other parts, you see greater perforations than the Romanesque churches. Even the towers, which rise above the churches, are perforated with vertical, thin, high windows, which in turn also receive the hand of the mason. In Chartres Cathedral, again, you see that the arms of the transept are basically non-existent. The effect is that of a basilical longitudinal church. The radiating chapels from the chevet are even more differentiated. There are the small ones, large ones, small ones, large ones. So there's a variation, and again, the very rich potential of differential groin walls in the three sequences can be observed. And yes, today, I mean, there is some modern lighting which aids the visitors to the church. It was still quite a light church. And this is not necessarily the Mediterranean. I mean, we always talk about the power of light in the sun of the Mediterranean, where you have more sunny days than rainy days. But in the north as well, in northern Europe, the clouds, the downcast days did not prevent the perforation of the walls to allow the light to come in. In fact, the rich reds, blues, and greens, which were used in the figural decoration of the stained glass, would create its own, light within the greater space of the church. And here is, Chartres again. You see there's no wood at all in the ceilings. The stained glass reaches all the way to the roof itself. The longitudinal windows are surmounted with little rose windows, in addition to the rose window at the entrance. And the elevation of the church is a three-part church. The gallery level here is not very effective. It has been reduced to what we call a triforium, a kind of transitional level which breaks the wall into three. But this horizontality here is contrast with the continuous vertical elements, giving you the visuality of ribs springing to carry the walls and then transmitting the pressure downwards. In the Romanesque piers, the molded pier had been very, very thick. In the Gothic period, the molded pier is also attenuated, becoming ever so thinner, as if they are, it is like wires carrying the church. And in the Notre, you see that the transept is almost non-existent. And as such, the crossing is no longer that important. And with that, the building has been opened up in the interior. And the variations here are almost fourfold. I mean, in the Notre Dame, it's almost as if you see, 4 different levels. but this is also a story which has variations, as we saw in the Greek architecture. The evolution of the kouros figures, the evolution of the proportions of the temples, was also the evolution of the inner elevation of the nave of the church. Sometimes having a gallery level where you could circulate at the second level, sometimes removing this gallery level altogether, not having this, and having simply a triforium with no space behind. So whether you have the gallery or not will define the elements on the outside and how much you can actually open up the windows. But basically what happens is you carry the structural system outside. So the lightened interiors gradually have the thrusts to the outside, to the flying buttresses, and then the flying buttresses can sometimes, as in this case, have two leaps consolidated with piers, as you see here. The piers are anchored with the turrets. These are not simply visual decorations which give a heightened effect, but they serve to anchor the outward thrusts, because you have these thrusts going outward, so this needs to anchor the thrust. So the whole building appears as if it is a cage almost like the legs of an insect, which will elevate the building by the allowing of the lightening and perforation of the wall. So due to these flying buttresses here, and look at the sophistication that has been attained here, it is possible to open the windows, and in addition to the rose window, you have a fantastic exterior as well. So very similar to the Greek temple, the stone mason that carved every single block of a building for the walls was also the stonemason who carved the rich rosettes, the rich animals, the rich moldings. So you have a true unification of structure and decoration. This is not an applied decoration, but this is a decoration within the structure itself. The structure itself is not hidden, it is exposed, and it becomes also, in addition to its functional purpose, it becomes an aesthetic asset for the church buildings. So, looking at Notre Dame in Paris, you see even better the end of the building, how the flying buttresses carry the thrusts outward. And when you look at the chevet part, it's almost as if the chevet has no structure at all. It's all conveyed to the outside, but on the outside too, it is done in the thinnest possible manner. So it is not an awkward thing which needs to be disguised, but it is something to be displayed, adding to the exterior perception of the church. So to repeat, the basic system does not change. You have the nave, you have an aisle, usually a double aisle, something which existed all the way from the early Christian to the Romanesque period. But what is now different is the elevation. How these basic components that were established very early from the 4th century onwards are being defined. And within this elevation, the nave, arcade, and then the triforium, which may or may not, allow circulation. And then the clerestory is the basic eclectic ground, where the ribs will carry the thrusts outward, and then have the pinnacles on top as well to contain these. The art of structure, art and structure. Structure becomes art in these churches, allowing very intriguing manifestations. Here, the flying buttress carrying the thrusts outward are even further articulated in a membrane-like fashion. So you don't simply have the buttressing to contain the building here, but you also have the articulation of those second-level buttresses, which give a solid effect, which is actually not that solid at all. This is quite deceptive in terms of the visual array. And France was where this attained the greatest sophistication. In England, as we shall see tomorrow, there were also experiments with the flying buttress and the articulation of the exterior surfaces, but the English church had more of an applied decoration. It was more horizontally spread rather than trying to soar upward like the French Gothic cathedral. Look at these attenuated piers reaching, you hardly see any of those solid square section piers or cylindrical piers anymore. It is all thin membrane outside and also inside. And looking at the two-story elevation here, the ambulatory is circled with vertical windows, which almost have no supports. The second story is also the same, together with the rose windows. So, in order to make these huge window spaces, surfaces, wind resistance, because you have to think of the wind also, the devices were thought out. There were mullions and traceries. So the veins and the patterns in stone that you see in these windows also serve to consolidate the glass, the stained glass wall, so they withstand the pressure from the wind, but this does not impede the polychromatic filling in of the windows. So in all these variations, you see the various members. Pier buttresses, the flying buttresses here, the pinnacle, a very important member, but most important of all is the rib vault. The rib vault, which is made possible by the pointed arch, by varying the height of the width. And then the triforium is in between. It's a joker element. When you have a pack of cards, you have the joker, and you sort of vary that. The triforium is that kind of element. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it is blown out of proportion. But the arcade, since it's at the ground level, always remains the same. So the basic configuration is a longitudinal church which soars heavenward, which tries to reach higher and higher. And when you look at these different experiments side by side, you can see that the Romanesque experiments which had been awkward, which had resulted in the collapse of many churches, in trying to create a wider and higher, church. Many churches collapsed even before they were completed. But in the Gothic period, those Romanesque experimentations reached the full fruition, getting higher and higher. So it's not simply the arrangement of the interior, nave elevation, but each member is also getting higher and more monumental. So you look at Amiens here, look at the nave arcade, and then look at now. We are also becoming more emboldened by the monumentality. More stone is being used. The stone is being raised higher. The openings are, bolder, and yet the variations of the interior are infinite. In a smaller scale church, a much smaller church, in Laon, you have, 4 divisions. You have the triforium, you have the arcade, you have the gallery, and you have the clerestory. But in the higher Amiens church, you have just the gallery, triforium, and clerestory. So the variations have become reduced, but it is higher and more monumental. So the experiments tend to vary a lot. It's not the higher church that has the more horizontal members. Quite on the contrary, once the experiments become more consolidated, they become simpler and more direct and clear in their manifestation. So you see in the Amiens Cathedral the different arrangements for the small windows, which are called the traceries here. They also tend to hold the stained glass together. Otherwise, it would explode, and with the wind, they would, start coming down in no time. So here's the Amiens Cathedral. Look at the plan here, very unified, and the unification in plan is also the unification of the facade, of the interior nave facade, getting to a high pointed ribbed vault and having a lit area in the radiating chapel, which draws the attention. And the outside of Amiens, with all the pinnacles, with all the turrets, continues the vertical accent. They are trying to reach higher and higher, as you can see. In Laon, France, if you remember here, we had the rather crowded nave elevation in 4 stories, but that doesn't mean that it is a dingy, dark place. It is sort of busy and somewhat, fussy. The horizontal members are a bit more emphatic, but the carrying in of the thin piers, the molded piers, give the springing point for the ribbed arches, as you see here, and they're all pointed. The thrusts are received by these cylindrical piers, which are not as large as those in Durham Cathedral in England, but nevertheless, they don't have the attenuation that we see in Amiens or Chartres. The exterior, we said, is also a gradual development. The perforation of the exterior was not simply to bring in the light or the stained glass. As we saw in Romanesque architecture, the turrets, the gargoyles for getting rid of the rain water, and the portals especially with the entrances were intended to disseminate the dogma of the teachings of the church. So the subjects which were treated within these, as you see here, are like a monumentalized open religious book. You don't need to read the books. The church, which is in the center of town, advertises this, and you are constantly reminded of the preachings of religion with these very emphatic illustrations. In the Chartres Cathedral, what we saw in the form of archivolts is still there. Christ is in a central position, like the Byzantine church, where we saw the hierarchy of Christ in the most focal position. We also have the vertical members of the figure column. The columns are in the form of figures. They convey the teachings of the religion again. They convey the various saints, and they're almost standing guard before you enter the church, and they flank all the entrances with other articulations for the top part. Okay, but in time, what happens is that the application of these portals becomes more cave-like. They become deeper, and they become even more assertive. So it's not simply the opening up of the space, as we see in Chartres here. Yes, you have the archivolts. Yes, you have a receding, perspective inside. But still, this is very much a, part of the wall. It is embedded in the wall. But when we look at, Notre Dame, and when we look especially at Amiens, we see that the whole wall itself in Notre Dame is becoming cave-like. The archivolts, extend inward like a cave, highlighting the tympan. You have the figure columns, and then you have the trumeau in the center. And the divisioning of horizontal layers of the church is still quite emphatic, despite the vertical, accents that continue all the way from the ground toward the towers, which pull the church even higher. And these colonnettes are rather transparent, and look at the traceries on the rose window. But when we compare Notre Dame with what is happening in Amiens Cathedral, we see that the wall is almost lace-like. There are not just perforations, seaming perforations within the wall, but the entire wall surface is almost indistinguishable from the main fabric of the wall. The cavernous gates are made higher. These are pointed arches here, but the pointed arches in Amiens are even higher, and they're given these decorations here, together with their own little windows, and the moldings. The figure columns are there, but the whole accent, the whole wall has become almost transparent. It's like worked out like lace. So when we talked about the interior of Saint Saviour in the Cora, the dome, or when we talked about the earlier 6th century San Vitale, where space itself became an icon with every square millimeter being covered, as if you were afraid of empty space. Here, every square millimeter is almost carved with the hand of the stone mason. And look at the numbers of turrets here. Many, many turrets drawing the eye upwards toward the heavens, the holy heavens. In Lao, again, you see the rose windows. You see a rather geometric drawing up of the tympanum. The arches are pointed, but not so pointed. They are close to the semicircle, but the receding archwalls give that high effect, and the perforation is quite apparent here too. We have good examples of what we call gargoyles here. These are not simply beasts which have a visual function on the church. They serve to channel out waste water. I mean, when it rains, it's quite emphatic because you see the water being spurted out of the mouth of these beasts, and it's quite a sight. And today, if you look at the horrible arrangements where you put some kind of pipe, and then you can't arrange a distance of the pipe from the wall, and then the walls become stained with the drop of water. So everything is thought out. Not too much, and the rain at that time was not as acidic as the rain today either. It was a cleaner, rain with less, the carbon dioxide, in it, with less pollution. But still, they had the maximum effort to keep away the moisture from the wall. The runoff water was channeled away from the wall to keep the wall sort of damp. If you thought Amiens was a pinnacle of this lace-like achievement, well, Reims Cathedral goes even further. Perhaps nowhere do we have this fiery, style, this almost flamboyant style, as we see in Reims Cathedral. It's almost as if the portals are on fire. It's almost as if the flames are going upward. So there is a terminology which we call the flamboyant style, because it looks flambé. It looks as if it is, set alight. And indeed, the figure columns and then the arch walls, the very high pointed arches, the tympanum, rising high, and then the parts here are almost non-existent. I mean, the thin, tall windows with hardly any wall. The wall has essentially disappeared. And here you have the rose window with veins and traceries in the rose window, the breaking up the wall and freeing it for the placement of stained glass. And looking back to Chartres Cathedral, you see that the archivolts are not so intricate, but still you have the figure columns, still you have the articulation of the wall surface. And this is very different than the Roman articulation, which was done with the polychromy of marble. It is done with the building material itself. Nothing is applied. The same material stone is shaped for all purposes. So in Italy, as we saw in the Romanesque examples like the San Miniato al Monte, which I showed you last time, there was the polychromatic marble, but very little articulation of the actual stone itself. So the Roman idea continued there, and here we have a emancipation from the Roman in France, in Britain to a certain extent. A new architectural understanding has entered the sphere. In Chartres here again, you see that the religious message is no less than that of what we saw in the Byzantine, late Byzantine marriage of art and architecture. The saints emanate in the archivolts, and the arrangement of the saints within the archivolts meet at the crossing, and they all crown the enthroned Christ. And then you have the last judgment, a very popular scene, as I showed in other tympana as well, the weighing of the souls going to heaven or going to hell. So the religious dogma is still constantly being reminded to the people with this aesthetic sense. And here you see the gargoyles, which would get the runoff water and channel it away from the archivolt itself. A closer view of Christ here, the weighing of the souls, and there's also a Mannerism here, a Manneristic art. The figures, yes, I mean you see the angel and the devil here, but they are done in a rather contorted manner. And this contortion, this skewing of the proportions, having thin, elongated legs, adds a kind of emotional dimension. And look at these sinners here, again the attenuated figures. So the scale of these figures, their attenuation, and then the rather flat Christ with a small face, the large wings, and then the billowing of the drapery in this overall halo is very emphatic. You see the crowded figures, but there's no question about what is in the center. And then as you come closer and the eye rests on the various tails, you begin to see the savior of the people. But the details are done very intricately. I mean, look at these figures. They're almost severing themselves from the surface of the stone. They're almost freestanding. These are not just flat reliefs stuck in a shallow manner to the wall. They seem as if they will be, coming out of the, wall surface in any sense. And then you see the sinners being pushed in the cauldron to perish as a punishment for their sins. And that contrasts with the more composed and more satisfactory figures who are entering the the palace of heaven as a reward in their afterlife. So the stark contrast of these almost smiling and composed figures with this contorted penitents being pushed to receive their punishments is quite remarkable. And then you even have people coming out of their tombs here. It's a rather grotesque scene in every way. And the term grotesque, does stem from some of this art. On the other hand, the column figures with their hands, stuck to their chests and holding an object or coming down to the sides in some instances, have the full composure of the unmoved. They are not moved by anything. They are serious. They stand there in a reliable manner. Look at the face here. It's part of the column. And yet again, you have the composure of that highlighted with the busyness of some of the background figures. And look at these. It's an intricate stone workmanship. In the Seljuk art, which you shall see later on, if you go to Divri and you look at some of the portals there, you will see something even more elaborate and something even more fantastic. But in Western Europe as well, we should not underestimate the skill of the stone mason. So every element of the column, including the capitals. The capitals are joined here, almost like a narrative scene, together with the grotesque figures put, here and there, reminding people of what, the fate would be. In the stained glass windows, we have the panels, the different panels, very much like the mosaic art that we saw in late Byzantine art, in Saint Saviour in the Decor. If you remember, in the Saint Saviour in the Decor, there was a hierarchy, a progression from the profane to the sacred, from the outside to the inside. And they were very informative panels. Not just the teaching of Christ and the significant, messages, but also an educational purpose in the narratives, the early life of Christ and the events associated with this early life. And that is rather similar with the stained glass windows as well. In this example, you see, you have to look very carefully, but the most emphatic figure of Christ enthroned with the Virgin, Mary, and you have the throne here, is in the center, and it is high up, and it has two squares allocated to the monumentality of the scene. So the focus on what is important has been differentiated here as well. And then the other stories, the journey to Bethlehem, as you see here, the Annunciation here, the Dormition of the Virgin. I think this is with Herod again. All the stories that you would have seen in Istanbul or Constantinople, as it was known at that time, would have been here too. So the medieval pilgrim who came to, Chartres would also feel at home if he went to, Byzantine Saint Saviour in Decor, because the story of Christ would be recognized. He probably would be very impressed with the mosaic art in Saint Saviour in Decor, saying, "Oh, there's nothing like this in Europe." But on the other hand, he might say, "Oh, this is rather strange. This flickering little stones, and the light is very different in the stained glass here." So they are different languages, different visual languages for the same subject, done in very different ways. In San Marco in Venice, we have some examples of excellent mosaics, but then that was south. It was in Italy. Go to France, or what is France today, go to England, go to Germany, you don't see any vestige of the mosaic art. I mean, the high point for that was the center of the Byzantine Empire, the late Byzantine Empire in the east. And San Marco, although it's in the west, it came closest to this kind of vocabulary, but then that is not part of what we call Gothic period, even though it is part of the of the same era. The potential of the stained glass should not be minimized. I mean, just like the tesserae were used to break up the light and create the nuances of effect, the different cuttings of the different colored light required quite a skill in being put together, and the effect, needless to say, was heightened by light. And there were different schools. I mean, this is the blue school, a lot of blue background gives a rather naturalistic effect to the whole scene itself. From a distance, the stained glass is also quite remarkable. When you think of the rose windows, and then the tall lancet windows, the vertical windows, and then the tall lancet windows filled with background figures, like the marble of San Vitale, which had all the surfaces with different textures, different colors, and different polychromy, and then setting the roundels, the different stories, in order to highlight what is the story and what is the background, but ultimately defining the space all together. I think this is the last one here. Whatever the Saint Saviour in Decor was for the Byzantine mosaic art, the Saint Chapelle, the chevet, is for the stained glass window. Look at high the ribbed walls are, and it is all transparent. The entire verticality is filled with the stained glass, and from a distance you see the flickering of light, but each component is very intricately arranged, as you see here, and the skill of the stained glass artist was no less than the skill of the mosaic artist. Hence, when you have the stained glass with perforated walls, even though you may not have the bright Mediterranean sun here, you have an architecture of light made possible with stained glass with these northern architects. Okay, I shall stop here because I don't want to